Beneath the wide sky, silence lingers, ancient and endless, as if it has been waiting since the beginning of time. The heavens stretch far, painted in soft blues and glowing gold, holding mysteries that only the gods may know. Among those gods, it is Zeus, the keeper of the skies, whose spirit moves in clouds and whispers in the wind. Tonight, I invite you to listen not only with your ears, but with your imagination, open and curious. For this story is not one of battles or conquest, but of wonder and the sky's eternal language. They call at times the burning sky of Zeus asterisk, not for its power to destroy, but for its brilliance to reveal. The heavens blaze with light, carrying lessons of strength, of balance, and of renewal for all who watch. When the first spark flashes, the rhythm of the world shifts, and the heart begins to listen. The clouds gather, the winds awaken, and the sky itself prepares to speak through light and sound. This is where our journey begins, with a burning sky, and with Zeus watching from above. The story begins with silence, not empty silence, but the kind that feels full of promise, as if the sky itself is holding its breath. The heavens stretch endlessly, vast and unbroken, painted in soft tones, carrying mysteries that only the gods could truly understand. Among those gods is Zeus, the great keeper of the sky, whose spirit lingers in the clouds and whispers quietly in the moving air. People of old would pause beneath this sky, their work slowing, their eyes lifting, sensing something larger than themselves above. A shepherd on a hillside felt it in the still air. A sailor at sea noticed it before the winds returned, and travelers knew it followed them. Zeus was not seen, not heard, but always felt woven into the silence. Steady, patient, watching without haste or force. For Zeus did not always speak in thunder or flame. Sometimes he spoke in quiet, showing that power can live in stillness too. The silence became a teacher, inviting people to pause, to breathe, and to wonder about life beneath a sky so vast and eternal. It reflected back their hopes, their questions, and their prayers, reminding them that awe often begins in stillness. The world seemed to listen too, the sea calm, the birds resting, the winds pausing, as if nature itself waited for the sky to speak. Within that silence came a sense of anticipation, like the first glow before dawn or the breath before words are spoken. People whispered of signs, a shimmer among the clouds, a sudden stillness, or simply the feeling that the sky was alive and aware. They knew the silence was not empty, but full of meaning, possibility, and the presence of Zeus himself. This was the first chapter of the Burning Sky, a reminder that wonder is born not only from thunder but also from quiet moments. And so the world waited beneath the breathless heavens, knowing that something was stirring, and that the silence would soon give way to light. The silence of the sky does not last forever, for every pause carries within it the promise of something waiting to unfold. From that vast stillness, there comes a spark, small at first, yet full of meaning and wonder. It begins almost unseen, a faint shimmer at the edge of the horizon where cloud and light meet. The ancient people knew this moment well, whispering that Zeus was lifting the veil of silence to speak. The spark was gentle, never harsh, awakening rather than frightening, like the first note of a harp's song. Imagine standing in a wide field as the evening deepens, when suddenly a quick flash lights the horizon. For a breath, the world holds still, eyes widen, and even the smallest creatures pause in quiet awe. This spark is Zeus's greeting, a reminder that the sky is alive, painted with fire upon its endless canvas. To farmers, it promised rain. To sailors, it gave guidance. To dreamers, it revealed the nearness of the divine. Yet beyond signs and meanings, it taught that greatness often begins with the smallest of sparks. Children laughed at its magic, pointing with wonder, while the wise nodded, knowing it as part of a rhythm. The spark whispered, "Pay attention." The story begins, asking hearts to notice the beauty of beginnings. It linked people together, for whether on sea or land, they shared the same light above them. Even nature responded, as winds shifted and trees leaned, listening to the language of the sky. The first spark did not end the silence, but transformed it into anticipation, alive with promise. And so the people waited, knowing Zeus had stirred, and that the sky's great performance was near. The spark was not only light, it was a symbol, a reminder that in every darkness, light would return. And with this spark, the tale of the burning sky moved forward, carrying hearts into wonder. High above the earth, beyond mountains and birds, the ancients imagined a place only for the king of the gods. They called it the golden throne of Zeus, a seat unlike any carved by mortal hands. It was made of light, glowing with a brilliance that never faded, shining brightest at sunset when the sky turned to fire. From this throne, Zeus was seen not as a tyrant, but as a guardian who watched the balance of the skies with patience. People believed his throne was not only above them in the clouds, but also within the order of the world itself. At dawn, they pictured Zeus rising with the sun, his throne glowing in the east as light spread across the sky. At twilight, they saw him in the last golden light, a reminder that even in fading day, he remained. The throne was more than a symbol of power. It was a symbol of steadiness and harmony. As long as Zeus sat upon it, the heavens would keep their rhythm. Storms would pass, rains would end, stars would return. The throne, vast and radiant, was never distant, for Zeus's presence was felt in every storm and spark of lightning. Children asked their parents where the throne could be seen, and they were shown the horizon at sunset. There, the parents said, when the sky blazes with gold, Zeus rests upon his throne. For sailors at sea, the golden throne was comfort, a light above the waters that assured them Zeus watched their voyage. For farmers, it was blessing, a symbol of balance, offering rain when the earth was thirsty and sunlight when fields longed to grow. The throne was alive in memory and imagination, each person seeing it differently yet feeling the same reassurance. Even nature seemed to honor it. Seas reflected its glow, mountains caught its fire, and trees shimmered in its golden light. Poets described the throne as eternal, a seat not of command but of harmony, holding both strength and care. The throne carried a lesson. True power lies not in chaos, but in order, not in force, but in steady presence. When storms gathered, people said Zeus had risen from his throne to walk among the clouds. When calm returned, they believed he had taken his seat once more, restoring peace to the heavens. Always, the golden glow reminded them that the throne was there, unseen yet never beyond imagination. At evening, as the horizon burned with gold, they remembered the throne of Zeus, shining with eternal light. They felt less alone, for the throne was a promise the sky was alive, cared for, and its guardian still watched. The sky is never truly silent, for even stillness carries a hidden voice that lingers softly across the heavens. Before the storm breaks, before lightning shines or winds awaken, the clouds begin to gather quietly. They do not rush, but move gently, as if invited by a secret call that only they can hear. The ancients believed each cloud was a messenger, drawn from distant edges of the earth, to carry whispers of Zeus. They said the clouds spoke in their own language, a language of shapes, colors, and movements across the sky. When the clouds stretched thin, people said Zeus was listening. When they thickened, they said he was preparing to speak. Farmers, fishermen, and wanderers turned their gaze upward, reading the silent script written in drifting clouds. A shepherd on a hillside would notice shadows replacing light and whisper, "Zeus is near." A sailor at sea would point to the gathering sky and murmur, "The god stirs above us." The clouds did not frighten them. They comforted, like distant voices of family gathering close. Zeus did not rush to speak. He let the clouds reveal his mood, gentle, calm, or heavy with promise. At dawn, they shimmered with gold, reflecting gentleness. At dusk, they blazed as if painted with divine fire. The whispering clouds taught that power does not always arrive with force, but sometimes with patience and quiet grace. Children gazed upward, seeing animals and palaces forming in the shifting sky, laughing at the magic. The elders smiled and said, "These are Zeus's messages. Every form has meaning if you choose to see." Some clouds carried blessings, white, soft, and light, promising calm days and harvests full of life. Others came dark and heavy, bringing storms, yet also rain the gift that made the earth thrive. To the ancients, clouds were patterns, a woven language teaching them to read the sky like sacred poetry. They lived not only by earth but also by heaven, guided by the silent whispers above. The sky became a book, Zeus, its author, and the clouds, his ink ever shifting, never repeating the same tale twice. Travelers spread these lessons across valleys and peaks, teaching others to read the movements above. Everywhere, people found comfort in the clouds, signs of Zeus's presence stretching across the world. The voice of Zeus was not always thunder, nor his sign always lightning, but the clouds spoke quietly for him. They reminded the people that under the vast sky, they were never truly alone. The whispers united them, weaving bonds of wonder across lands, seas, and generations. Thus, the story of the burning sky was not only fire and storm, but also the soft gathering of cloud. For the gentlest voices are often the most enduring, preparing hearts for what is yet to come. Before the people saw lightning, before the storm unveiled its fire, they first heard the voice that shook the heavens. Thunder was never just sound. To the ancients, it was a language, the voice of Zeus himself. Each rumble carried meaning, sometimes gentle, sometimes commanding, but always full of presence. In valleys, the first soft roll of thunder was like a low drumbeat, steady and alive with mystery. Children paused their games, wide-eyed, as if a great storyteller had cleared his throat to begin. Farmers looked to the horizon and nodded, knowing the rains were on their way to bless the fields. Sailors on the sea gripped their boats, not in fear but in respect, for thunder gave guidance as well as warning. The voice of Zeus was not always fierce. Sometimes it was distant, calm, like a father calling from afar. At other times it grew deeper, rolling across mountains and seas, impossible to ignore. Yet even in its power, thunder reassured them the sky was not empty, that someone watched above. Poets compared thunder to a grand symphony, an orchestra conducted by Zeus with fierce and tender notes. They said the sky was his instrument, each crash of sound a note in his endless song. When thunder followed lightning, people imagined Zeus speaking after lifting his torch of fire. It was his answer, his way of closing the distance between heaven and earth. In villages, families gathered under roofs, listening together as the rolling voice passed. No one dared speak over it, believing it was wrong to interrupt Zeus himself. Sometimes thunder came quickly, one after another, as if urgency filled the god's voice. Other times, long pauses stretched between rumbles, urging people to reflect in silence. Each sound had rhythm, teaching them to listen not only with ears but also with hearts. For them, thunder was more than weather. It was a reminder that they lived under a watchful sky. The ancients told of Zeus teaching wisdom through thunder, urging humility and gratitude. When harvests were plentiful, soft thunder reminded them to give thanks for abundance. When droughts lingered, strong thunder urged them to endure with faith and patience. Always, they listened, for even in silence they knew his voice would return again. The voice of thunder connected all people, echoing through valleys, seas, and mountain peaks. No matter where they stood, the sound was the same, uniting them under one sky. Thunder was not only power, it was belonging, a voice bridging heaven and earth. And so, whenever thunder rolled, they leaned into its sound instead of hiding. They felt comforted by its strength, guided by its rhythm, humbled by its reminder. It was Zeus speaking, not in anger, not in wrath, but in presence and care. The voice of thunder told them, the sky is alive, and you are part of its story. High above Greece, the mountains rose like ancient guardians, their peaks touching the heavens, their slopes wrapped in forests, streams, and whispers older than time. To the people below, these mountains were not just stone and snow, but sacred places where gods walked and mysteries lived, holding voices beyond mortal understanding. One evening, as the sun painted the horizon with burning colors, a group of travelers followed a winding path, chasing rumors of voices that echoed across the cliffs. They were storytellers and seekers, dreamers who longed to hear the divine. It was said the sounds in the mountains were not of wind or bird, but something older, something eternal. By a stream, they rested, and there it came, a low hum, soft and distant, rising from the ground itself. Neither music nor noise, but something both gentle and commanding. The youngest traveler, eyes bright with wonder, whispered, "Do you hear it? The voice of Zeus?" The others looked at one another, their hearts quietly stirred by the sound. The hum grew stronger as twilight deepened. The rocks glowed faintly in the silver moonlight, and the wind carried whispers that were not words, yet filled with meaning. To some, it was comfort, a hymn of peace. To others, it was courage, a call to rise. But to all, it was a reminder that the burning sky belonged to Zeus. High above, unseen, the god of thunder watched. The mountains had always been his allies, unchanging, eternal, unyielding, speaking on his behalf, without need of form. The travelers sat in silence. One hummed along with the echoes, another closed their eyes in prayer, and another listened, feeling their spirit awaken as if from sleep. The mountains no longer seemed silent or cold. They pulsed with life, alive with the divine breath, carrying the voice of Zeus across stone, stream, and valley. Though no one could truly grasp its meaning, each carried away a spark of wisdom, of light, of connection that would stay with them for the rest of their days. When dawn arrived, they descended, carrying their stories. In the villages below, they spoke of whispers, echoes, and the power that filled their hearts with awe. Some called it a blessing, others a warning, but all agreed it was a gift, a moment when the mountain spoke with a voice that stirred even the quietest soul. And so the legend spread. On nights when the stars burned bright, the mountains would speak, not with words, but with echoes, not with answers, but with guidance. It was a reminder that Zeus was never distant. He lived in the sky, in the earth, in the breath of the mountains, and in the voices one could hear if they truly listened. In the valleys where the mountains softened into hills, a river wound like a silver ribbon, glistening under the sun by day and shimmering beneath the moon by night. They called it the River of Reflections, for its waters held not only the images of trees and stars, but also the quiet echoes of the soul, as if touched by the hand of Zeus. People believed its current carried fragments of the sky, a divine gift reminding mortals that their lives were always tied to the heavens above. At dawn and dusk, when the sky burned with fire, the river mirrored it so perfectly that earth and heaven seemed to dissolve into one. One evening, a young woman came to its edge, her heart heavy with questions, drawn by tales that the river revealed truths to those who gazed into its depths with still minds. She knelt on the soft grass and leaned close. At first, her reflection showed only her weary face, but slowly, it shifted into images not bound by the present moment. She saw herself as a child, running through fields, her parents guiding her gently, and paths she might have walked, choices she might have made. The water did not speak in words, but in visions, weaving her story with patience, showing who she had been, who she was, and who she could yet become. Her heart grew calm, her spirit steadied. The answers were not commands, but reminders that her journey was hers to shape, always under the gaze of the sky. The wind stirred, carrying a low rumble across the hills. Clouds gathered, glowing faintly with the presence of Zeus. Yet she felt no fear, only connection. The river reflected the burning sky, and in its shimmering depths she sensed the god's watchful eye, steady and reassuring. Others too came, elders, travelers, children, dreamers, and each found something different in the water. Joy, sorrow, courage, or simply comfort. The river did not choose or judge. It welcomed all. Its divine presence felt not as thunder or fire, but as a quiet light guiding human hearts. Poets sang of its visions, elders shared its wisdom, and wanderers carried stories of its shimmering truths to lands far beyond the valleys. Yet none could truly explain its power. It was not a place of answers, but of clarity, not of command, but of reflection. One star-filled night, villagers gathered at its edge. The water lay still as glass, mirroring the heavens so perfectly that earth and sky seemed one. For a moment, they felt part of something greater than themselves, as if the thread of the river bound mortal lives to the vastness of the divine. When dawn broke, they returned home lighter, carrying no prophecy but something more precious, a faith renewed and spirits lifted. The river flowed on, weaving mortal stories with divine whispers, shining forever beneath the watchful eyes of Zeus in the burning sky. Deep in the heart of Greece lay a grove where time slowed, sunlight filtered gently, and silence carried the weight of something sacred. This was the sacred grove of oaks, a place believed to be blessed by Zeus, where earth and sky seemed to touch through ancient trees. Oaks, with roots deep in the ground and branches lifted to the heavens, were thought to be bridges between the mortal and the divine. Travelers entered softly, lowering their voices, as though stepping into a temple without walls, where even the wind felt holy. The air smelled of moss and wood, and the rustle of leaves sounded like whispers, sometimes mere wind, sometimes the voice of Zeus. At the grove's center stood the oldest oak, its trunk wide as a house, its branches embracing the sky for countless generations. Pilgrims came to sit beneath its shade, closing their eyes, hoping to hear wisdom in the murmuring leaves above their heads. One evening, a wise elder brought children into the grove, teaching that trees were storytellers, holding memories in their rings. He told them, "Listen closely, and you will hear the stories of storms, summers, fire, and rain that the world has forgotten." The children closed their eyes, and the rustle of leaves became images, festivals, footsteps, and thunder rolling across the sky. It was as if the grove itself breathed history, reminding them they belonged to a story much older than their own lives. For generations, the sacred grove was a place of counsel where farmers, sailors, and leaders came seeking clarity and peace. People did not demand answers here. Instead, they listened, leaving with thoughts, feelings, or simply the calm of the grove. The grove spoke not in words, but in impressions, in flickers of light, in dancing leaves, and in the quiet weight of stillness. Zeus was said to favor this grove because the oaks reflected his nature fierce in storms, gentle and calm, enduring across time. At night, the elder and the children watched stars shimmer through the branches, fireflies glowing like tiny sparks of divine light. The wind moved softly, carrying with it the steady voice of the earth, timeless and grounding, like a god's quiet blessing. The elder whispered, "The trees do not command, they remind. The god does not force, he guides." The children understood. The grove remained season after season, a sanctuary for people and for creatures who found safety beneath its sheltering arms. Storms came and passed, but the oaks stood strong, their roots deep in the earth, their crowns lifted proudly toward the burning sky. Visitors left speaking of whispers in the leaves, of peace that touched their souls, of Zeus felt not in thunder, but in grace. Thus the legend grew, that in the sacred grove of oaks one did not find commands, but something greater, eternal connection. Not far from the sacred grove of oaks stood another place of mystery, a temple where people sought guidance from the oracle of Zeus. The temple rested on a rocky hillside, its white stone columns bright against the sky, with the scent of burning herbs drifting gently in the air. Travelers came from distant lands, climbing winding paths with questions about journeys, love, and the uncertain fate of kingdoms. It was said that Zeus allowed the oracle to hear fragments of his will, carried through whispers of wind and the crackle of firelight. The oracle, a veiled woman, spoke in riddles and imagery, her voice slow and calm, as though it echoed something greater than herself. When she entered her trance, the air thickened with incense, shadows flickered on the walls, and silence felt alive with waiting. One morning, a young poet named Callias arrived, carrying only his lyre and a restless heart searching for purpose. He knelt before the oracle, who sat by the fire, her eyes half closed, as the flames danced and filled the chamber with warmth. Callias asked softly, "What is the meaning of my gift? Why do I sing when the world does not listen?" The oracle breathed deeply, and her words fell like drops of rain, slow and gentle, stirring ripples in the silence. "Songs are not for ears alone," she said. "They belong to the sea, the earth, and the sky. They echo where you cannot see. Her voice deepened, carried by the fire. Zeus does not burn the sky in anger, but in reminder. Lightning fades, yet its light is remembered. Callias felt a stirring within. His songs were not wasted. They were threads in a tapestry far larger than he could imagine. The oracle smiled faintly, as if knowing he had found the answer he sought, though her words had not been direct. Outside, pilgrims gathered, each sharing their own version of what they heard. None the same, yet all believing it was truth. One claimed she spoke of journeys across seas, another of storms yet to come. Each meaning was shaped by the heart that heard it. The beauty of the oracle was not in giving clear answers, but in awakening reflection within those who came to her. Zeus's whispers were not commands. They were invitations to pause, to grow, and to trust the hidden current of life. That evening, Callias played his lyre under the open sky, his notes rising like prayers, blending with the hum of cicadas. Villagers gathered, listening in silence, some closing their eyes, others swaying, touched not by answers, but by peace. His songs became not only his gift, but his offering echoes, reaching hearts in ways he might never see. The oracle had shown him that purpose was not always grand or clear. Sometimes it was as simple as a song at dusk. The hillside temple glowed in the fading sun, its braziers burning, its columns casting long, quiet shadows. Still, pilgrims climbed the paths, seeking not certainty, but a moment of connection with the divine mystery. Zeus was present not only in storms, but in twilight hush, in the music of the lyre, in fire that glowed steady and calm. The oracle remained, season after season, her whispers like sparks landing in the hearts of those who dared to ask. Some sparks ignited courage, others smoldered quietly, guiding choices many years later. All became part of Zeus's design. Thus her legend grew. She was not the voice of destiny, but a mirror reflecting truths already within each soul. And in her whispers, the burning sky of Zeus became not fear, but light, guidance, and hope carried forward by all who listened. Every summer, when the heat was strongest and the skies restless, the people gathered to celebrate the Festival of Thunder in honor of Zeus. It was not a festival of fear, but of joy and reverence, a way to honor the beauty and mystery of the sky above them. Villagers decorated streets with garlands of laurel, golden ribbons, and pottery painted with lightning bolts and soaring eagles. Children carried clay lanterns shaped like clouds, their laughter echoing as if inviting the storm itself to join their play. At dawn, the festival began with music. Drums, flutes, and lyres rose together, their notes drifting upward like living prayers. The songs were lively, celebrating not only the power of thunder but the gift of life it promised to protect. In the square, storytellers recounted the myths of Zeus, reminding listeners of his wisdom and his presence in the sky. Each tale taught that thunder was not only sound, but voice a reminder of the divine order guiding the world. Vendors sold honey cakes shaped like lightning, figs dipped in wine, and bread sprinkled with salt to honor earth and sea. The air filled with a sense of roasted grain, herbs, and incense, a sweet offering rising into the breeze. By midday, dancers spun in the square, their leaps imitating the arcs of lightning that split the summer skies. The crowd clapped and sang in rhythm, their voices lifting in harmony, joining earth and sky in shared joy. Even travelers felt at home, welcomed into the circle of music, food, and stories woven through the day. For the people, the festival was more than celebration. It was communion, a reminder of living beneath the sky's protection. As the sun lowered, priests carried bowls of water, lifting them toward Zeus as a gift of renewal and gratitude. The eldest among them raised his hands and spoke, "We thank the sky for its fire, its rain, its gift of balance." The wind shifted, clouds gathered, the horizon darkened, carrying a quiet weight as if the sky prepared to reply. Lightning tore across the heavens, bright and fleeting, followed by thunder rolling deep and steady beneath their feet. The people cheered. No fear rose in their hearts, for they knew this was blessing, not warning from Zeus above. Rain began to fall gently, first as mist, then as steady drops, cooling the air and feeding the fields below. Faces lifted to the sky, voices singing with joy as the rain washed over them like a sacred gift. Children splashed in puddles, while elders smiled softly, remembering the many festivals they had lived before. The music swelled again, drums echoing thunder, flutes weaving like wind, voices joining with the rhythm of rain. In this moment, they felt closest to the divine, not through fear, but through joy shared beneath the storm. Zeus was not only a god of thunder, he was the guardian of balance, the keeper of harmony between sky and earth. The festival honored that harmony, teaching people to live not against the burning sky, but with it in peace. As night fell, lanterns glowed like sparks of lightning, their warm light flickering across the square. Families gathered around fires, telling stories and singing songs as the stars appeared above the fading storm. The thunder rumbled once more, like the closing chord of a grand symphony, before the silence of night returned. The people carried the joy of the festival in their hearts, holding it close through the year to come. In the festival of thunder, they remembered not only Zeus's power, but his grace, the light within the storm. The city of Athens stirred with voices, music, and footsteps echoing against ancient stone. Its streets climbed toward the Acropolis, where temples shone like crowns under the wide sky. Merchants opened their shops at dawn, and the scent of bread and olives filled the air. Children's laughter rang through the alleys, light and free as river water rushing downhill. Above, the sky stretched brilliant and vast, waiting for Zeus to speak through thunder. Every clap of thunder was heard as his voice, every gust of wind a subtle sign. The people felt his gaze, not his fear, but his presence that guided their days. Festivals brought dancers, poets, and dreamers together, weaving earth and heaven with song. On one such day, dark clouds gathered over the shining marble of the Acropolis. The people stopped and lifted their eyes, whispering in awe at Zeus's nearness. A single bolt of lightning lit the Parthenon, painting it in unearthly light. For a breathless moment, all noise stilled, as though gods had stepped onto mortal ground. Then rain fell in silver streams, soft and kind, blessing fields and city alike. Children splashed through puddles. Farmers raised their hands. Elders smiled in deep thanks. Athens rejoiced, for the burning sky was not destruction, but renewal, balance, and gift. That night, torches lit the agora, and storytellers gathered to share myths aloud. Each tale reminded the people that the burning sky was always near, never gone. A child listened wide-eyed, feeling the rhythm of the world pulsing above her. Stars pierced the clearing clouds, whispers of eternity shining over the fresh earth. The city beneath the sky was more than walls, it was a hymn to the divine. Athenians lived not apart from heaven, but within it, bound to Zeus's burning fire. And so life carried on, each step and song echoing the voice of the sky. The winds were restless, playful, and free, sweeping across mountains and seas with voices that carried secrets. To the people beneath Zeus's sky, the winds were not just air, but messengers of the divine. On a hillside, shepherds listened as breezes lifted their cloaks and carried notes like faint music. Some swore they heard laughter hidden in the gusts, as though unseen spirits played above. Others believed the winds sang wisdom, reminding mortals of stories older than stone itself. Sailors knew their voice best, trusting invisible hands to guide their ships across shimmering waters. A gentle breeze was promise, a storm was lesson, both sacred and necessary under Zeus's gaze. One evening, a strange calm fell. Sails hung loose, and the air pressed heavy on the shore. The silence was so deep, it quickened hearts. Even the gulls above seemed to pause. Then, without warning, the winds returned, not as fury, but as a gentle symphony. They swirled across the sea, through olive groves, wrapping temples in a dance of grace. It felt as though Zeus had lifted his hand and let the whole world breathe again. The Athenians gathered in awe as the breeze carried scents of salt, thyme, and rain. Poets tried to catch the rhythm of the unseen orchestra in words and song. Children spun in circles, their laughter weaving into the song of the winds. That night, elders told tales of how the winds were born, playful children of the gods. Others said they were ancient souls, wandering forever, carrying secrets from horizon to horizon. But all agreed. The winds were part of Zeus's endless song, the world's living breath. A traveler spoke of a mountain cave where all winds met, creating a chorus of stone. Pilgrims climbed to listen. Some returned with visions, others with silence. Yet all were changed. The wind shaped not only landscapes, but hearts, teaching mortals to bend, to dance, to endure. Every gust carried resilience, reminding humanity of the flame of Zeus above them. As night deepened, the winds softened, a lullaby replacing their hymn of movement. The people rested, grateful for the divine gift, hidden in something as simple as air. They knew the song of the winds would echo in every breeze, in every filled sail. The winds were not just motion, but Zeus's breath, weaving life and wonder into the world. And so the seas, the mountains, and the city slept beneath their gentle song. It began with a faint glow, resting quietly on the edge of the horizon, as if the sea itself was holding a secret light. At first, the people thought it was the sun, refusing to sink beneath the waters, lingering just a little longer. But the glow did not fade away. Instead, it pulsed brighter and brighter, steady as a heartbeat, alive with mystery. Fishermen whispered that the horizon itself was aflame, though the fire did not roar or devour like an ordinary blaze. Sailors glanced nervously at the sky, pulling their sails tight, unsure if they should fear or admire the sight. Yet their eyes held more wonder than fear, for the glow was warm, steady, and strangely gentle. The elders recalled old tales of Zeus, stories of divine fire lighting the edges of the world as a sign of presence. They said the flame was neither sun nor storm, but a beacon from the gods, reminding mortals of their place. The young listened in silence, wide-eyed, believing they were seeing myths step out of memory into reality. Families climbed the cliffs to watch the fire spread across the waves, turning the sea into molten gold. Children laughed and pointed at the glowing horizon, unafraid of the strange wonder before their eyes. Parents held their hands tightly, sensing both beauty and weight in the moment, as if time itself paused. Some said the fire was a warning to sailors, to honor the seas and never take their paths for granted. Others believed it was a message to cities, urging mortals to live with reverence and harmony. Poets were quick to shape verses from the shimmering horizon, their words born from the divine glow. Even priests stopped their chants, letting silence fall, as if the sky itself had become the sacred hymn. Night deepened, and the glow spread further, staining the clouds with red, orange, and gold. It was fire without harm, illuminating without destroying, burning without consuming, a paradox in the sky. The people marveled at this gift, for it showed them power that was fierce yet kind. Travelers carried the tale to distant lands, speaking of the horizon fire that guided sailors safely home. In Athens, storytellers retold the vision as a hymn, sung in the agora, echoing like living memory. One group of sailors dared to chase the fire, setting sail to find where it touched the earth. For days they followed the light, yet the horizon always stayed ahead, just out of reach. When they returned, they brought no treasure, but their faces glowed with reverence for what they had seen. They said the fire was not a destination to find, but a companion to journey with. It could not be caught or owned, only followed, honored, and embraced with humility. The people understood then. The fire's meaning was not in chasing it, but in walking the path it revealed. As seasons turned, the fire returned again and again, steady like the world's own heartbeat. Children grew up with it, weaving its glow into their songs and games under the night sky. Elders called it Zeus's blessing, constant yet changing, a light that reminded them of the divine. The fire on the horizon became more than a sight. It became a teacher and a guide. It was Zeus's reminder that power could inspire without fear, and light could guide without burning. It showed the eternal bond between sea and sky, mortal and God, fire and life itself. Whenever the glow returned, the people lifted their eyes and felt part of something infinite. They remembered they lived not beneath an empty sky, but beneath a sky alive with wonder. And in that glow, they found belonging not as small mortals, but as children of the horizon flame. The sky had always been a canvas for Zeus, painted with clouds, winds, and shimmering light. Now something greater stirred. A gathering unlike any before, written in cloud and sound. On the horizon, the clouds did not drift lazily, but marched together, heavy and purposeful. The winds circled low across the sea, carrying voices in tones neither human nor divine. Fishermen raised their heads in silence, sensing not threat, but anticipation in the charged air. Birds flew in spirals, weaving patterns as if guided by an unseen and steady hand. On mountain peaks, goats stamped restlessly, gazing upward at what mortals could not name. In villages, work slowed, hammers paused, looms fell quiet. Children stared wide-eyed at the sky. It was not fear in their hearts, but reverence, awe, and a wonder too deep for words. The storm did not roar. It rose patiently, like a song climbing toward its great chorus. Priests whispered that it was Zeus's council, a heavenly gathering shaped in cloud and thunder. Poets called it the breathing of the heavens, a rhythm too vast to capture in verse. The sea itself grew still, waves folding softly, listening as if it too awaited the sky. Ships rocked gently in harbors, their ropes creaking like whispers, bowing to the silence above. A flash of light appeared gentle, golden, not fierce, weaving across the sky like a thread. It lingered, illuminating faces below, making eyes shine with reflected brilliance and silent joy. Children clapped, saying Zeus had lit a lantern in the sky to guide them home. Elders shook their heads, remembering tales of the gods shaping the world with fire. In temples, chants fell silent, priests bowing as words could not match such majesty. The storm was not warning, but invitation, urging mortals to lift their eyes and remember. They remembered the world was earth and stone, yet also sky, fire, and eternity. Colors shifted in the clouds, purple, crimson, and blue, woven like a living tapestry of light. It seemed as if the heavens were painted anew by the steady hand of Zeus. Travelers paused their journeys, forgetting burdens, as they stood beneath something greater. Mothers lifted children to their shoulders, whispering that they were seeing history in the sky. The winds carried a melody, faint and trembling, a hymn without words yet full of meaning. It was not chaos, but harmony, an unseen song that stirred the soul with wonder. In the storm's heart, a silence deeper than silence fell across sea and land alike. It was the stillness that made hearts beat louder, making mortals feel small, yet infinite. Zeus had not spoken, yet his presence was undeniable in light and quiet majesty. The message was clear. Strength could be beauty, and power could inspire without fear. The storm parted, leaving stars brighter than any had ever been seen before. The people lingered long after, holding the memory of the gathering in their hearts. They would tell children and grandchildren they had seen the sky breathe with Zeus. Though the storm passed, awe remained, a quiet fire alive within every soul. The gathering was not an end, but a beginning, a promise of wonders still to come. When the night finally released its hold, dawn began to appear. The horizon shifted from indigo to rose, and the stars faded away. For those who saw the fire, the morning felt sacred and rare. It was not just another sunrise, but a promise unfolding. The clouds still carried faint echoes of golden light. Every color seemed sharper, as if polished by divine hands. Villagers stepped outside with quiet reverence. No one rushed. They paused to listen to the silence. The air was not empty, but filled with quiet meaning. Birdsong rose gently, weaving joy into the morning sky. Children laughed as they ran barefoot across the grass. Their voices rang like bells through the calm air. Yet even in play, they looked often at the sky. Wonder clung to their hearts, bright and unshakable. Elders gathered softly at the edge of the village. They spoke of how the storm had risen with fire. They recalled the sky glowing like a hymn of light. To them, dawn was proof that balance remained. They honored Zeus as the keeper of harmony. Travelers arrived, sharing stories from distant shores. Each tale was a thread in a vast tapestry. No story was the same, yet all carried awe. It was as if Zeus painted the sky for each soul. In the city, poets filled the agora with verses. They spoke not of thunder, but of stillness and light, temples filled with incense, prayers of gratitude rising. Priests prayed not for power, but for wisdom. Farmers tilled soil with gentler, reverent hands. Sailors set out, trusting the fire would guide them. The dawn became a quiet festival of gratitude. Every heart knew it was part of something greater. Children drew suns with rays that touched the sea. Mothers hummed tunes that echoed the winds. Even animals moved with a rare calmness. Dogs rested, cats stretched. The fields shimmered with dew. Each droplet mirrored a fragment of the sky. As the sun climbed, the fire's glow faded, but its memory lingered in every lifted glance. The people knew the storm would one day return. They would meet it not with fear, but with open hearts. For the dawn after the fire was a beginning, a promise carried in light, a reminder of the divine. Each morning, eyes lifted not for answers, but for gratitude. And in that gratitude, the people found peace. They knew they were children of the sky, blessed by fire,